Welcome to Smart Talk Radio, Episode 9. This is Chris Zafoid-Karabats. In this episode, Mark and I interview Tatiana Moroz about her history in cryptocurrency, her music career, the podcast she's on, and what she's doing next, as well as a bit of thoughts about cryptocurrencies in general and what drives her to participate in the crypto space. We hope you enjoy this episode, and thanks for listening. Hey everyone, this is Chris Zafoid-Karabats of SmartTalk Radio, and I'm here with Mark.
I'm Mark Hakkarainen. I'm on the outreach team for SmartCash.
And today on SmartTalk Radio, we're interviewing the great Tatiana Moroz, singer-songwriter, founder of the first ever musical artist coin, and CEO of Crypto Media Hub. Go ahead and say hi to our audience, Tatiana.
Hey everybody, nice to be here.
It's great to have Tatiana here. I was on her show a couple weeks ago, and a big fan of the work she's doing in the space. So I'd like her to tell us a bit about herself to some of our guests who, surprisingly enough, may never have heard about her. So go ahead and tell our audience here a little bit about who you are and why you're in the crypto space.
Sure. So sometimes I'm a little bit of the weirdo in the crypto space because, where's the crossover from music into Bitcoin? Although I guess there's a lot more artists in the space now. Before I got involved with cryptocurrency, I had been performing all around the country for the Ron Paul campaign in 2012, and that was really great. But then I figured out the government was not going to solve our problems, no matter how hard we voted, no matter how many "End the Fed" signs I held up. No one was going to do what I wanted. So I decided to move into Bitcoin. The guys from BitPay had supported my tour at one point, and then they came and sold me my first Bitcoins at $11 back in August of 2012. Maybe it was September. And since then, it's been sort of full immersion in this space. So I do my own music as a singer-songwriter. I created the world's first artist cryptocurrency back in 2014 in order to support artists and fans connecting directly. I also have a marketing and PR company called CryptoMediaHub.com that I've had since January of 2015. And I have two podcasts, The Tatiana Show, which, Chris, you are on, and then I'm launching a new one called Proof of Love. So I'm excited about that because it's going to be a relationship podcast for the crypto space, something a little bit different.
That's amazing.
That sounds great. A relationship podcast for the crypto space. A lot of us could probably use that in this space. But that sounds great. What are you hoping to start that show off with?
So we just taped 3 episodes. I have 2 co-hosts. I have Lauren Kasovitz, who's one of my best friends for years. She's a former blogger and works at my company, Crypto Media Hub. And then I don't know if your audience listens to Let's Talk Bitcoin, but Dr. Stephanie Murphy from that show, who's also been talking about relationships for over 10 years on the internet, she's my other co-host. And we have, famous crypto guests, or we sit around and talk about different topics ourselves. So it's a lot of fun. And I look forward to releasing it on Valentine's Day. So that'll be, I think, apropos. But, I personally went through some emotional growth last year, and I realized I have a lot more to do. So I think that that's maybe a shared theme with people in the tech space in general. And yeah, we're hoping to help people create real connections and probably more importantly, create a genuine connection with their self and gain more self-love and all that good stuff.
That's a great thing to do. I was just talking with Adam Kokesh the other day, and one of the things we talked briefly about was how a lot of people in the freedom space, the libertarian space, are rejects from other areas, and a lot of them need a lot of help when it comes to interpersonal relations and relationships, and they aren't very well in touch with who they are emotionally inside, which can make relationships very hard. And a bear market like we had in 2018 is a great time for personal growth, including in the emotional sense, not just in the learning technical sense. So I think this is great timing for a show like that. That's pretty awesome.
Thanks. I'm super excited. Everybody's been really enthusiastic, and yeah, if there's a bear market, I think it's really important to get our relationship straight for sure.
Yeah, because we all know that one of the biggest stresses in any marriage is money, and that's awesome. I'm glad you're doing that. You mentioned that you were working with Ron Paul in 2012. Now, people don't usually go from zero to working in Ron Paul. Do you mind sharing a bit of your journey into the libertarian freedom oriented spaces?
Sure, I'd love to. So I grew up listening to a lot of music from the 60s and the 70s. My mom trained me well with a lot of that revolution stuff. And especially the song Peace Train by Cat Stevens made me realize that you could use music to convey a message. And I was always really interested in using my music in order to elevate humanity and think about different ways of organization of people in order to make it the most equitable situation. But unfortunately, there wasn't really much in my generation that was there to be excited about. But then I found out in 2008 about Ron Paul for the first time, but I had been really interested in Dennis Kucinich. And then when I saw Ron Paul, I thought, oh, he's kind of like Dennis, but I don't know why he doesn't like the EPA. Sounds like a weirdo. So I didn't get 100% behind him until 2011 when I found out about the Federal Reserve. And for me, when I saw the Money Masters and America Freedom to Fascism, it was like, these are my enemies. I must get them. And so that's what I did. And I started writing music to reflect that. And I also did a really nice cover of Masters of War that some of your listeners may have heard before. And that really was a bit of a catalyst for me to jump into the Ron Paul movement. And then I just started, playing different rallies and stuff like that, which was an honor beyond belief. I mean, those are some of my happiest memories from life because it sort of brought things full circle and it allowed me to use my music exactly in the way that I had always intended. But then, like I said, when you see how the Ron Paul campaign was handled, even by his own party, the Republicans changed their own rules in order to keep them out. And if you're playing a game where the rules are constantly changing, it's not a fair game. And so, pretty soon thereafter, I was off the plantation and on to the next thing, which to me was cryptocurrency, especially Bitcoin at the time because it was the only thing at the time. But what I loved about Bitcoin was, I went to the conference in Atlanta that Jeffrey Tucker took. Jeffrey Tucker is a good friend of mine, and he had also hopped me up on the possibilities of Bitcoin. But what I really noticed was, even though I didn't understand what anybody was saying, I loved the vibe and the energy. It was people not asking for permission, but people just building alternatives. And that was really, really exciting to me, and it inspired a lot of music since then.
That's a great story. I love how in this space everybody comes from different roots and they bring in what they have into the space and are able to share. Like you're able to share your music and your love for freedom, and you're able to combine that in the crypto space in an amazing way.
Yeah, and you know what I also really appreciate about it is the ability to get outside of my comfort zone. I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston. I had managed various recording studios in Manhattan, but with crypto, I get to expand my horizons and I'm constantly working with different projects. So from a mental growth kind of perspective, it's really exciting because, it's something a little bit different than just music. And music is really important, but the world is not comprised of just a few jams.
Well, some of those physicists think we're all just vibrations on some higher plane. So you never know.
Exactly.
Segue to string theory.
There you go. That's what we'll start talking about now. We're all experts in string theory, right?
Yeah, I like the idea
Certainly.
you talk about. No one's asking permission. It's just sort of building alternatives, and I think that's something that SmartCash is trying to really do. Is it's not trying to say, "Hey, you have to ask permission to join." It's like you can vote on a proposal. You can kind of submit things. So I think your idea of self participation is something that really resonates with the community.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed hearing about the method for people submitting things because I had heard what they do in Dash, and it seems like what you guys are doing is a couple steps beyond that. So that's very interesting. And I think it's something that people are not necessarily comfortable with, but once they get going, especially newbies, right? But I think once they get going, they can really appreciate it.
Yeah, in this way, you're like a pioneer too. So what sort of got you into the idea of saying, "Hey, I could use on your site, I think it was Omniparty, you could use something on Bitcoin to self-fund." I know in music, it's often a challenge to figure out how to distribute your music. There's Napster and eDonkey and iTunes and all these different publishing methods. But being self-reliant seems really like a new ideas sometimes. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. So the reason why I made Tatiana Coin was really from personal experience. So, I had gone to Berklee College of Music. I was in the right place. I was in the right time. And yet, making a career in New York is really difficult. And it wasn't just that, oh, maybe I wasn't a good enough singer or anything. I mean, we've heard some people on the radio. I'm probably comparable, right? But the music industry had sort of morphed into this porno pop thing that I found really disgusting. And as a female artist, I thought it was really hard because, I don't want to dress like Britney Spears. I just want to have music like a normal person. But the landscape had been changing, and a lot of power had become very concentrated in the hands of very few, sort of like a cartel. And what I wanted to do is solve two main problems that I saw for artists. And I'm not talking about solving Beyonce's problems. I'm talking about the regular artist in your back, on your street or whatever. Fans and funding. So how do you make sure that you're not playing to just the bartender and the waitress and maybe your mom? And then how do you make sure that you don't have to have 6 waitressing jobs in order to support your music career? So by creating an artist coin, it was an evolution of the idea of an Indiegogo or a Kickstarter campaign. But instead of donating $50 and getting a t-shirt, you would donate $50 and you would get $50 worth of Tatiana coin that you could use in my store, sort of like a gift certificate, but you could also break it up. So if you want to send $5 worth to your mom, $5 worth to your sister, you can totally do that. And what that would allow is a way for them to all of a sudden sneak attack, get a cryptocurrency wallet, which was absolutely my objective. I also felt that artists were really great messengers for cryptocurrency because if you work at a bank, you can't talk about the revolution that's coming because of Bitcoin or any of the other currencies. And then on the fan side, I had really taken advantage of social media. And as I went from platform to platform, I soon realized that I actually didn't own those relationships, especially with Facebook. That's become particularly annoying to deal with. And, I can't really leave those platforms because those platforms own those relationships. So if somebody owns a Tatiana coin, now they have a direct connection to me, regardless of whatever platforms are out there. And then from there, we can build a relationship. However, what I didn't take into account, by the way, we used a counterparty token. Originally, we had been talking with Mastercoin, but we ended up going with Counterparty, which is now, still growing and stuff. But we decided to make that coin, and my surprise was that the platform upon which it was to be used didn't exist. I had no experience with technology at all. I thought that things just sprung out from the air. I know that sounds like silly, but I just didn't know how it worked. So after we created Tatiana Coin, it was almost as if we had a car without any roads. And Adam B. Levine from Let's Talk Bitcoin and I, we had created this coin together. And because we realized we didn't have the roads, Adam took it upon himself and his team to create Tokenly and subsequently a music platform, Token.fm. And that was supposed to be the roads. And so that's what we've been working on since the coin's inception. We've been ready to launch for a while, but with the bear market and with some of the regulatory stuff, it's been a bit of an impediment. But the platform is there, and I'm really, really proud of what it's sort of evolved into, because I think of it as a place where an artist can create their own empire, going beyond just fundraising and communicating with the fans, but creating special experiences, creating a community, creating a way for people to control their pricing, control their distribution, and also gain new audiences. It's sometimes people ask me if I do my music, and I certainly do. I'm recording my 4th album right now, or writing it and stuff, but I want to create a more lasting impression and to be able to empower hopefully millions of different artists to just have a living wage. I mean, that alone is not the most sexy thing, but it's to me a lot more fruitful for humanity. I feel like we're getting robbed every time I listen to the radio because I know that there's better music out there. So anything that I can do to facilitate that is something that really inspires me.
That's a great story. Obviously something you're very passionate about and wanting to share. You have a personal problem with music and how artists are treated and how artists come up from nothing to being famous, and you looked to cryptocurrency to solve it and built your own thing from nothing, and that is great. And
well, the guys helped build it, and also my friend Lisa Chang from Van Bex, she was really critical, so I'm totally not taking responsibility for this.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you were just the impetus to kick it off the ground and get everybody going. I'm not saying you did all the work yourself, but that is how these things go. Somebody has to have the idea. Somebody has to have the vision to make it happen. And none of us can do everything on our own. I mean, that's one of the beauties of the cooperation that we have in cryptocurrency. None of us are alone here because we are. I mean, money is just a way for people to exchange value with one another, and acting as a way for people to work together easily. You helped build that for musicians to work together easier. I'm impressed with that. That was great. You did that very early on in this game, though. I agree that it's hard to launch something like that and push it off the ground with the bear market as it is at the moment.
Yeah, but we're very hopeful. We're raising money and stuff like that. So I think it'll make it. It's just, it's hard because you get very impatient when you're doing these sorts of things. And as you guys know very well, building in crypto is like building on quicksand a lot of the times. Everything is constantly changing and it's really difficult to anticipate everything. But, I mean, I've heard it considered as one of the most competitive industries out there, and I would agree with that. But it's very invigorating at the same time. I mean, if you're going to live, you got to go big or go home.
Exactly. And, when there's so little regulation of the space that really lets competition run free, and that can bring out the best and the worst in people. But at the same time, you hope that what is best will survive and will be what people use. And I liked your metaphor of you have this car, but you don't have any roads to drive it on. And that's what we're trying to do with SmartCash is build full ecosystems. And that's what really we need to do in the crypto space is, we're not just focused on me buying something for you, me exchanging value with you. We want it when I exchange value with you, you can go and use the same medium to exchange value with somebody else. And then they can go and pay their suppliers using the same thing. And so it's about the full ecosystem because, we don't want people to just go back to fiat when things get hard with crypto. We want it to work, all the way from you buying your coffee or you paying for your music all the way down to your the supplier of your guitar should accept crypto and they should be able to pay for their wood and their metal with crypto and they should be able to pay their workers with crypto. So building the full ecosystem is that equivalent of building a road. And we fully believe that this can be handled by the free market in a much better way than the up on high by the fiat monetary system.
Well, what I also find intriguing about it is no matter which coin will win, and maybe there'll be a lot of them, maybe there'll be a small amount. I think what's interesting is getting people to think about what is money in the first place. I think that shift in thinking alone is going to be, the effects of that are going to ripple out throughout the years. So I don't know. I mean, sometimes it feels like there's a lot of zombie people around, but I think once people start getting into cryptocurrency, the veil is lifted. And even though obviously, maybe obviously, I don't know. But I'm a libertarian, but you don't necessarily need to insert politics into cryptocurrency in order to have basically what you want to have happen if you're a libertarian anyway. So it's almost a sneaky way to get people into libertarianism, which I like.
Yeah, I have thought things similar in the past where, it doesn't matter what they really believe. If they're responsible for themselves and they're encouraging other people to be responsible for themselves, then that's all we really care about, just not interference with other people's lives. And I agree with you completely that getting people to think about money is a huge part of this because to so many people, money is just a thing that is. And why would you think about it? It's like water and air and money, where cryptocurrency actually makes people think about why they find the things valuable they do valuable and why they want to store their value in little green pieces of paper that somebody can make more of as much as they want whenever they want.
Yeah, I think, I tried to express that in the Bitcoin jingle, but we'll see if it kind of jives with people. But I think, for me, even if I knew about why the Federal Reserve was horrible, but I still couldn't get excited about Bitcoin. So I think it does take a little bit for people, but I think, we're trying to make it fun. And there's been so much creativity around this space, and I think it's just going to continue to grow. So You got to try to tell people the message in a few different ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like the idea of you like building communities and connecting with your audience. It's a very different approach for artists. When I think of an artist, like I think of historical, uh, I think historically about it. So I think back to like Mozart trying to get a king to support him as one person, but you can't really do that in the modern space. You're engaging with a global audience, and you really need to connect with them. And that's the goal of cryptocurrencies too, to create a nice, strong community foundation. So it's something that, as an artist, I think you have a unique perspective on how to build a community, especially uh, Tatiana coin, for example. That's a tough community to work with. You want it more than just the bartender and your family and your friends and things like that. You want a full ecosystem. Is there any sort of advice you could give to people about like building and sustaining communities as an artist?
Well, I think it's still really difficult. A lot of artists want to get involved right now, but I hate for them to think that, oh, I'm going to be rich, because you're not. I think it's something that you've got to be experimenting with right now, and without those expectations, because there is no guarantee. It's really, really early on. But I think that that is very much aligned with the artistic spirit. So I think if artists can just, start learning, and also on the other side, educating their fans about it, I think it's going to be a little bit of a longer process than what sometimes people try and convey, because people are always trying to loop in the artist. But I don't want to BS them, because that's not helping them. And then they're just going to say, oh, that crypto stuff, it didn't do anything for me. But if you can set realistic expectations, once they start to get it and once it clicks, they're naturally going to spread it out to their fans. And whether or not that's going to help them build an audience, I don't know. I think they'll find some new crypto people. But it's an evolution, and evolution doesn't happen overnight, I think.
That's really interesting how you put that. It doesn't happen overnight. It makes me think of Bitbacker. It's the Patreon alternative with crypto. And I think of that as something that artists could put their profile in there, and they can get a sustainer sort of base of people donating to them. And then it becomes more real. They can say, hey, actually, I'm not just paying for my coffee. I'm paying for like my phone bill and something else every month. And that could be a way that it becomes more realistic instead of a speculative thing. So do you have any ideas of like different platforms you've tried to work with online to sort of connect cryptocurrencies to artists? And has that been something that you think there's a future in, or is it more artists directly engaging without the use of these platforms?
I think it's really hard for artists to directly engage without the use of the platforms, because the stuff simply doesn't exist. I mean, the tools are being built right now. I'm actually going to be interviewing JJ from Bitbacker on my podcast pretty soon. So I'm looking forward to learning more about it. I actually just set up an account yesterday. So when I think about other platforms, I get mildly excited, but not really that excited. I'm a little bit biased because I have my own platform and I am pretty singularly focused. I haven't really seen anything that I think compares to what we're doing, but that's because it was literally built to my specifications, right?
Yeah.
But I think that there are a lot of other opportunities, and the more people that are putting their minds to it, the better. I think that friendly competition is really healthy, and I think interoperability is really important. So instead of always competing, maybe we can find ways to collaborate competitively, and I think that that could help grow the space more efficiently, but that doesn't always happen, I guess.
Yeah, it's a creative process, and there's some creative destruction going on, and just sort of shifting ideals. So with Tatiana coin, can people go out and get that coin right now and then go and use it to get some sort of supporting merchandise?
Yeah, somewhat. I mean, there's some limitations as the platform is built out, but they can certainly get some Tatiana coins with their purchase. I would say right now, even though you can use Tatiana coin to purchase things, I think right now it's more of like a fan token, sort of, and a little badge of honor versus something that you would really be using. Just because for me, the utility is somewhat limited until we launch the platform. It's not a coin that's meant to be traded against other coins. I think that that could happen eventually, but it certainly hasn't been a focus for us. It's definitely for fans and not for speculators. But it is a piece of history, so that's kind of neat.
That is
And we'll
neat.
see how it goes.
Yeah, it sounds like a bit of a collectible, which is actually a really cool concept. I could see you doing some interesting things with non-fungible tokens in the future about some unique thing that came out, and there's only a limited amount, and each one's special.
Well, that's what we do. Certainly, like we made an album token that was representative of my album Keep the Faith. And that was pretty neat. Actually,
Oh, cool.
I'd love a chance to talk a little bit about that because we did something really cool with the album that I think really supports the idea of free speech for artists. You know, like I said before, the Britney Spears devolution of music left me sort of disappointed because there was a lack of meaning. And I think the incentive is really off there. So when we did Keep the Faith, which was my third album, and that was the one that was funded by Tatiana, I wrote a song called The Silk Road. And I wrote it about Ross Ulbricht because I had become very good friends with his mother originally, and then subsequently Callie, his sister, and Ross himself. I visited him over a dozen times in prison. But, you know, for the album cover, we used a picture that Ross took, or rather, Judd Weiss, who's a very famous libertarian photographer, took a photo of me, which I sent to Ross. And for my birthday, he did a hand-drawn version of it. So I decided to use that as the album cover because I want to bring attention to the Silk Road. It's a complete travesty of justice. But it also shows that, you know, if I was signed to a major record label, I wouldn't necessarily be able to take such a contentious position. And art needs to be able to do that because it has to push back on the system. And so by using that artwork, it allows me to talk to people about what happened with Ross. And also it draws attention to the fact that maybe artists aren't as free to speak out. And that's a problem, in my opinion, that hopefully we're solving.
That's an excellent point with how important it is for artists to be able to speak freely. And, you know, that's always been difficulty for musicians and artists throughout the ages is, you know, you can either speak your mind or you can make sure to not piss off the people giving you money. And the more tools we have to let artists freely speak their mind, better, I think. You know, the fewer gatekeepers between the artists and their audiences, the better in my mind. And I think what you're building here is something that lets artists talk directly to their audience easier than they otherwise would be able to, and thus have more freedom in speaking exactly what it is they think, be it about the Silk Road or the Fed or whatever. Not that a bunch of people want to listen to songs about the Fed, but there is an audience out there.
Well, I don't know. I like writing about how to end the Fed.
Yeah, no, I love listening to those because, you know, it is an important message and people just don't realize how intrusive it is. And yeah, the slow theft that is inflation in all of our lives. What you're doing there and what, you know, being able to put your heart and soul freely into your music without worrying that the guy at the label or whatever your celebrity sponsor is would shut you down simply because of what you're saying there is great. And I think we need that more, not just, you know, in artists and music, but, you know, writers and journalists and anybody who, you know, to use an old phrase, is trying to speak truth to power. You know, anybody out there needs the ability to put what they say down honestly. You don't want to have your book pulled because you're writing about somebody famous and they don't want to piss off that other person, so they don't want to publish your book or your song or your whatever. And that is an excellent thing you're doing there with that, and an excellent causes that you're pushing for.
Well, thank you. I think, you know, free speech is something that is under attack right now. And it's really important to defend free speech. And it's funny that people think that the only speech you have to protect is nice speech. I mean, hate speech is important. All those kinds of speeches are important. Obviously, we hope that people aren't doing hate speech, but without that freedom, I mean, you don't need protections for nice speech. You need it to be something that is a little bit challenging, and you have to defeat ideas on their merit, not by suppressing them. I just don't think that works in the long term.
Yeah, it doesn't work in the long term. And that's, you know, we are seeing that in this country right now, where a lot of abhorrent ideas that were repressed are coming out, and they're getting a lot more attention now because they have been repressed for years. Even though they're nonsense ideas, you know, people think that, well, if the people in power didn't want you to hear them, there must be something to it. And it always backfires. At every point in history, that kind of suppression has backfired. And the crypto space in general is really doing a good job of trying to support the people who want to speak actual truth and not just be reactive to what the official stance is and not speak the nonsense that we're hearing a lot right now.
Well, I have to say that I've seen SmartCash supporting a lot of really awesome activists, and of course Ben Swan, and just there's a lot of different people that you guys are supporting, Naomi Brockwell among others. But it's really cool to see that happening, right? Because I think as the world gets a little bit more corporate in the crypto space, people are shying away from those kinds of things, and so to see your community embrace those content creators, it's really encouraging. So keep up the good work, guys.
Well, thank you very much. And on that note, I think I will let you have the last word here. Let everybody know where they can find you and anything else you have a dying need to say right now.
Well, people can find me at Anarchaforko thanks to you guys for supporting me. So if people are going to Acapulco, you want to get away from the cold, join us at Anarchaforko. You can use my coupon code Tatiana. If you want to listen to my new relationship podcast, you can go to Proof of Lovecast, like podcast, but lovecast.com. I've got the TatianaShow.com, CryptoMediaHub.com, and of course my music is available at TatianaMoroz.com as well as on iTunes and Amazon and Spotify and all those regular places. But if you want to support me directly, you can go to my website, TatianaMoroz.com. Follow me on Twitter, Queen Tatiana. And I really appreciate the opportunity to meet with your audience a little bit virtually and hopefully gain some new friends.
Oh, thank you very much. And don't forget, if you go to Anarchaforko, please pay for your ticket and your hotel in SmartCash, because you can do that now. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your time, and we will sign off here. Hope you have an excellent week, Tatiana.
Thanks, everybody.